Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, and this is the new Fender Mustang Micro Plus. Let's get into it. Now before we start this test, I want to mention that I put chapter markers on this video so that you can easily skip past some things, because going through all the amps and the effects processors is pretty tedious and time consuming. So if you don't want to watch all that, you can skip ahead or backwards to a part that maybe you're more interested in. Well, at long last, Fender's released a brand new version of their Fender Mustang Micro portable headphone amp. Now, I've actually had the old one for about 3.5 years, and it is a tried and true workhorse. But the fact of the matter is, 4 years old is nearly obsolete from a technological standpoint. So it was about time for Fender to update the Fender Mustang Micro. Now, right now, these things are selling for about 130 bucks. You can get them on Amazon.com or Sweetwater, pretty much anywhere now. And they've got relatively favorable reviews, but of course there's only a few of them out because it's only been out for a few days now. If you're new to the Fender Mustang Micro series, well, here's the Cliff Notes version of it. It's basically an entire amp system that you plug into your guitar, and you plug your headphones into it and you can jam along whether you're camping or you just want to practice during lunch at work, or maybe everybody in your house is asleep and you won't really need to play along with AC/DC at 2 in the morning. Whatever you can think of, this thing's great for that. Now, it is rechargeable. You plug it into the wall, and I'd say after about 4 or 5 hours, it'll get you a full charge. It's just very convenient to have around, but it's a market that's getting pretty increasingly crowded, and I actually have several different versions of this type of product that do nearly the same thing. So I'm going to see how the new Mustang Micro Plus works out, because while I said I had the old Micro Mustang, it worked out great, and then I replaced it with the Waza Air headphones, which are also pretty amazing. And then more recently, I got the Boss Katana Go system, which is very similar to this, and they discontinued it within like 2 weeks of production. So this might be the new workhorse. We'll see how it tests out. Now, Fender does say you'll get about 6 hours of playtime out of this after a full charge, which is pretty good. And while it looks nearly identical to its predecessor, it's actually a whole new beast entirely. For starters, the architecture's been completely redone to more mimic the Fender Mustang GTX style of amps. Now, before I get into this device here, there's one test that I really wish I would have seen before I bought my first Fender Mustang Micro, and that's the Fitment Test. What do I mean by that? Well, you can see the way that this thing is designed. It does bring a little bit of concern, right? Like, is it going to fit my guitar? Is it going to get in the way of everything? So let's run through a test of 4 different types of guitars with 4 different inputs. I think just to keep it on track, we'll start with Fenders. So first up, we've got a Fender Stratocaster. This is an Aerodyne model, but it does have the same inset jack that you see on nearly every Stratocaster. So we'll stick that in there. And of course, they must have designed it to work on their Strats. That's probably why it's got a little offset there. Seems to be pretty good. You can tilt it up so you can see the screen pretty nice. It seems like if you were to rock it side to side, it's actually resting against the jack plate and not touching the body, which I have to imagine is something Fender designed on purpose. Next up, we're going to look at, quite obviously, a Fender Telecaster here. And you can see that's got a side jack, but it is also inset. So we'll plug the Micro Mustang into it. Of course, Fender designs it to work with their guitars, so it does. Now that's not too bad. You can tilt it up so you can see the screen still. Just like the Stratocaster, it seems to be pretty good, but the sides are a little bit harder to read, of course. Now moving on from there, we get to Fender enemy territory, and we've got a Gibson SG here. This is obviously the best guitar ever made. You can see that we've got a flat jack there on the front, very close to the controls, which is actually what prompted this whole test. So let's plug it in there. It's not a problem to see the actual device. I can tilt it, but it's heavily intruding into the space here of the neck tone knob. So much so that I really can't rotate it too much, but I don't think it'll be a problem seeing the screen on there. It's just kind of in the way if I need to adjust that. There's really no way to put it so it's not in the way. Something to consider. Now, I was going to do a Gibson Les Paul for the last test, but this guitar actually has the same sort of side jack on it. And I'm going to plug this thing in, and you can tilt it, no problems whatsoever. But I don't know if not seeing the sides is going to be a problem, and I'm going to get into that here in a second. Now real quick, let's take a look at the unboxing from earlier today. Well, here's the box for the Fender Mustang Micro Plus there. It's funny, this packaging looks identical to the old Fender Mustang Micro packaging. All right, opening it up here, we've got the Fender Mustang Micro Plus, and look at that, it looks identical to the old Fender Mustang. Of course, looks like they reversed the lettering so that now it's visible when you plug it into your guitar as opposed to before, where it was upside down. I think it's a wise decision. Underneath the case here, let's see, we've got, this would be the cable. Yes, you've got your USB-C charging cable there. What do we got here? We've got the Mustang Micro Plus important safety instructions and Fender Mustang Micro Plus quick start guide there. Oh, this is funny. This is the Fender Mustang Micro Plus Studio One. I'm guessing it takes you to a download link. That's pretty funny seeing that card, because I was thinking of actually the old Fender Mustang Micro, which came with a business card like this that had a bunch of color-coded dots there that showed you what amp you had on or what effect, and I will talk about that a little bit more here after this unboxing. All right, back to you, Ben. Now for this test, I'm going to be using a Godin Session T Pro guitar. It's a Stratocaster style body, but it does have a Seymour Duncan pickup in the bridge here, and then two Seymour Duncan single coils in the middle and the neck. Plays really awesome. I love the way it sounds, in case you're wondering why I'm not using a Fender, but I just wanted to have the flexibility of having a humbucker there. Now I'll plug the Mustang Micro Plus into this guitar, and then I will use the USB out from that into my DAW and record the audio straight from there. I won't be using any effects on my DAW. Everything's going to be coming right out of the Fender Mustang Micro Plus. Now the Fender Mustang Micro Plus uses nearly the same identical housing as the old Fender Mustang Micro, and it's almost everything's the same, but there's a few changes to it. For starters, they added an extra button, which I'll get into here in a minute. They also added a little bit more padding on the back side there, and I assume that's in case it rests against your guitar body. You don't want it to scratch the finish, right? That would be a major bummer. Now the biggest change between the two models is they added a little screen on the front there, which is great because it'll display some of your editing parameters, it'll display what preset you're in, and a couple other things as well. Now that is a much welcome change because the old Fender Mustang Micro used a series of colored LEDs that would tell you what preset you were in or what minimal effects adjustments you would do. In fact, the system was so confusing, and memorizing these different combination of LEDs was so daunting that Fender actually gave you a business card that would tell you what the lights meant, and you could keep this in your wallet or whatever you wanted to do. And you know, if it's green, it's a tape delay with a reverb. If it's purple, it's a vintage tremolo with a reverb. Not exactly cutting edge, but this was 4 years ago, and honestly, I remember at the time opening it up and seeing this card and thinking, wow, that's cool, I could keep that in my wallet. Now I mentioned that the architecture has been completely redesigned and the user interface as well. And what I mean by that is the old Fender Mustang Micro had a set of very rigid presets, like a 65 Deluxe that was permanently paired with an overdrive pedal. And that was that. You couldn't adjust any of those. And then as an option, you could add an effects unit to it. And those effects units had very minimal adjustment too. So for example, you could add like a hall reverb, but the only adjustment that you can mess with, and that was with the modify button on the side of the unit, would control one predetermined parameter that you had no control of. You couldn't set it. It was just whatever Fender engineers built this thing decided that if you're going to use that reverb, the only parameter you need to adjust is the mix level. And then if you played a chorus, then the only parameter you needed to adjust was the speed. And so you didn't really get the full benefit of actually having one of those effects pedals with you. And that's where the new Fender Mustang Micro Plus made huge changes, because now it's more like an entire multi-effects pedal system inside this unit, but more importantly, with the use of your app on your phone. And I know that's going to scare some people away because people don't want to carry their phone around with them wherever they go, even though everyone does carry their phone around with them wherever they go. But they just want to have that freedom to not do that. And that's just one of the trade-offs I think that we have to deal with these days. But the good news is using your phone, you can edit and save up to 100 presets on the new Fender Mustang Micro Plus, and they will stay on this device. So you can leave your phone at home while you go out to the woods and practice on your Fender Stratocaster. Not that that's weird or anything. Now I was thinking about the best way to do this review, and since the device depends so heavily on the app, I'm actually going to focus more on the app, and then where applicable, I'll mention where the device ties into that. I'm hoping that makes a lot more sense as you watch this review. Now I have to say I'm a big fan of this app because right out of the gate, you can just plug it in, turn it on, and start editing presets, make all the changes you want. Nothing like you have to create an account before you get in there and find a password that's 72 characters long and has 18 capital letters and 19 numbers in it. No, you can just start going. Now there is an option to create and sign into an account, which will give you some more cloud options for the app, and I'll talk about that later, but really I just love that you can just start going right out of the box. So anyway, what you're going to want to do is turn on the app, and then it's going to say connect to device on there. And what you're going to want to do after that is then turn on your device. Then you're going to see the device pop up and you're going to click on it. And that'll open up the preset view. Now the preset view is going to show you the last preset that you were using. So if you turn it off while you're playing preset 15, then it's going to load back up with that. Now mine's on preset 1 here, and what we've got here is a basic patch 01 called Driven Deluxe. And what that is a tube screamer type pedal, and then an amplifier there. It looks like it is the Deluxe Reverb. And then lastly, we've got a 65 spring reverb pedal after that. Now there's a number of different ways to change the presets. From the app, you would swipe up from a blank spot in the preset, and you'll see it changes to the next preset there. Now I'm on preset 4. Additionally, in the top left of the corner, you see it says List View. You can click that, and now you have a list of all the presets that you can change around and select from. Now the last way to change presets is there's a set of buttons with the word preset printed underneath them, and that's a plus and a minus button. And if I click the button, it's going to change the presets, and it's synchronized, so it's pretty quick there. So I'm back to preset 1. Now you can see that there's a blue square that says the number 1 in it next to Driven Deluxe. Now what that means is I'm on preset number 1, and that patch has not been edited yet. The second I edit anything, that blue square is going to turn red. Now what I also want to point out is there's 2 blank boxes on this screen here. One says mod and one says delay. Now, those are 2 more additional effects that you can add to this preset. And that's what's really nice about these presets, is you get a total of 4 different effects that you can add in addition to your amp. So let's click on the first one there that says mod, and we see that it says chorus. Now you would confirm your choice by either clicking the picture of the chorus pedal itself or hitting confirm. So I'm going to hit confirm, so we've got our chorus pedal there. And now you see it's giant on the screen there. You just click anywhere outside of the effect to get back to the signal chain. Now let's move over to the blank spot that says delay. Click on that, and yeah, mono delay, that sounds good. I'm going to confirm that. And again, I'll click anywhere outside of there to get back to the signal chain. Now let's say we want to change around the order of any of these effects here. This is a pretty cool feature as well. You just basically grab it and drag it anywhere. So let's move the amp to the end of the signal chain. Click and hold the amp, and then I just drag it to the right, and you see the vertical blue bar there. That indicates where it's going to land. I'm going to put it at the very end. Actually, you know what? I want to keep the reverb at the very end, so I'm going to slide the reverb over to the other side of the amp. Now I think it's a good time to plug in because we're going to start hearing some of this in a second here. So what does this sound like? Well, after listening to that playthrough, I've realized reverb is not really something I like on this patch. So I can do 2 things. I can either bypass the reverb or I can remove it completely. To bypass, it's pretty easy. Click on the reverb, and you'll see at the bottom there it says bypass, or you can hit the foot switch and that turns it off. Now if I want to get rid of it completely, there's a button on the bottom right of the screen here that says remove, and I can click that and boom, no more reverb. Now lastly, if you wanted to swap it out for a different reverb effect, you could click the reverb and then hit replace, and now you have an option to select any of the other reverb effects. Well, let's go to a blank patch. I'm going to go to patch number 71, which is the first of the blank non-factory presets. And this preset is pretty much completely empty with the exception of the studio preamp in there. Now, what does it sound like? So it's a pretty blank preset. Now I mentioned earlier that there's some limitations with the effects, and yes, it's true that you can add 4 different effects, but they're all from 4 predetermined categories, if that makes sense. 1 effect from each of those categories. So the first category is called stomp boxes. The first effect is called overdrive. Green box. Then we got mythic drive. Black box. Then we get into fuzz. Then big fuzz. Octobot. Then we get to our studio compressor. Then we've got our sustain. Which is basically like a more powerful compressor. Then we've got a graphic EQ. And then lastly, we've got our envelope filter. The second category is called mod, and we open that up and we see we've got chorus. Moving on from there, we get to our flanger. I always play lightning crashes whenever I demo a flanger, I don't know why. Then moving on from there, we get to our phaser. Moving on from there, we get to our vibraphone. Then we've got our tremolo. And then we've got our harmonic tremolo. Now the next category here is called delay. First we've got our mono delay. Then we've got our tape delay. Then we move to our 2290 or 2290 delay. And lastly, we've got our reverse delay. And then our last category is reverb. So first we've got large reverb. Small room reverb. Spring reverb. And large mod hall reverb. Ooh, that sounds good. So really there's a lot of effects that you can choose from there. You get one delay, one reverb, one modulation source, and then one stomp box source. And I think the stomp box category is the only one that I really have an issue with, because I feel like all the overdrive and distortion units should be in maybe one separate category, and then more of the productional side of effects should be in another, like your sustains or your compressors or even your envelope filter. Maybe they'll change that in an update, who knows. But I think it's the fact that you either are going to pick a distortion pedal or a compressor is a little unfortunate. Now besides all those effects, there's a whole host of amplifier options. Now let's take a look at those. I still have all the stomp boxes and delays and reverbs off, and this will just be the bare amplifier sounds. So first you've got your 57 champ, 57 deluxe, 57 twin, 59 bassman, 65 Princeton, 65 deluxe, 65 twin, BB15 low gain, BB15 mid gain, and BB15 high gain. The Excelsior, the Supersonic, the British 60s, British 70s, British 80s, American 90s, British color, British watts, FBE 100, Metal 2000, Thrift 60s, Uber, Studio Preamp, Tube Preamp, and finally the acoustic simulator. Now, if you're familiar with the Mustang GTX line of amps, you've probably seen most, if not all, of these effects and amplifiers. Now, something I haven't mentioned about all these pedals and amplifiers is that you can edit every single parameter that's on there, and that's a big difference between the new Mustang Micro Plus and the old Mustang Micro. Whereas that one had all those preset things, there was very few parameters you could actually edit. But on the new stuff, everything you see on the screen you can edit. So when it comes to editing effect, it's very simple. I'm going to open up the stomp box. We'll put the Mythic drive on there, which I'm guessing is a copycat clone pedal. And you see it says gain, output, and treble there. I can mess with the gain by grabbing it and sliding it up and down. I can mess with the output, sliding it up and down, and the treble. Pretty simple there, right? Another thing I want to point out is, let's look at the delay pedals. I'm going to load up the tape delay here, and you can see there's a time button there. So if I were to strike the strings right now, I can set the time one of two ways. I can slide the time to what I want. Alternatively, there's a dedicated tap button on the Fender Mustang Micro Plus, and you can actually use that to set your time as well. So let me plug this in. I'll give it a strum. And then now I can just mess with the tapping here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Pretty neat. There's a little bit of a bug involved with that in that when you click your tap to set the time for the delay, it doesn't update the preset image to show where the time has changed. And that's not really too big of a deal until it comes to saving a preset. And let's talk about saving a preset. So you've chosen your distortion pedal, you've chosen your amp module, your tape delay, and now you like the preset so you want to save it. Well, that's pretty easy. Up in the top right of the menu here, you see it says save. You click on that and you'll see it says line 1 and line 2 there. And basically what that is you put the name of your effect broken down into 2 different words. And so that's so it displays correctly on the Fender Mustang Micro Plus. So for this effect, I'm just going to call it Ben's Folly. And then I hit return and then I hit save. And now 71 is Ben's Folly. So there's an alternative way to save your presets as well. There's a save button on the side of the Fender Mustang Micro Plus. You can hold that down for a second and it'll bring up a menu that says save preset. What I would do to confirm that is then click it again and it says preset saved. This one's a little bit more dangerous than on the app because if you hit save, it's just going to save over whatever you've got there. You lose out on the option of saving it to a certain preset slot or changing the name of it. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to use the actual unit to save. But honestly, since you're going to be using the app to control nearly every aspect of the device, I don't really see that option being used too much. Now, one of the bugs that I was mentioning earlier with the delay is that if I tap a delay on here, and let's say it comes out to 60 BPM, it doesn't update the time icon on the actual delay pedal. And then if I end up saving with the app, even though I edited the time on the device, it's going to save with whatever this time says. So it's not a huge deal, nothing's too destructive in that regard. It's just something to keep in mind. Now, one thing you might notice in the bottom left of the corner is this button that says Modify Control. Well, if you click that, it's going to ask you select the block for Modify Control. Now in this case, the only one that's available to me is 2290. So I'm going to click that delay and you'll see that says select your parameter for Modify Control. Well, let's just select the feedback. Now really all Modify Control does is send that parameter that you selected to the Modify Control buttons on the Mustang Micro Plus. So now if I hit the Modify plus or minus, really all it's going to do is adjust the delay feedback there. And that's really an extension of what was on the old Mustang Micro, and that you could sort of adjust the reverb mix level or something. But what's nice is they now at least give you the option to control what that parameter is, whereas it was kind of set in stone before. And that's basically the ins and outs of making a patch. You put all of your effects units on there, you adjust and dial the settings the way you like it, and you hit save. It's pretty simple. Now, like I said earlier, one of my favorite features about this device is the fact that you can't hit the ground running. You rip open the box, plug it into your guitar, and you're ready to go. But if you do create an account, you get access to some pretty fun features. So First off, the biggest feature, of course, I think is going to be the cloud. And the way you would get to that is you get to the list view on the app here, and on the very left you'll see a cloud there. And what you can do in there is load up a bunch of presets that Fender's made, or maybe some presets that somebody else has uploaded. It's pretty cool. There's a bunch of presets that you can download to your Mustang Micro Plus in there. Now I was curious what would happen if you downloaded 100 different presets. And basically it'll let you put 100 down there, but once you get to 101, it just says you have no more room, you need to clear out some space. And that's something to keep in mind too, because the unit comes with 70 pre-made factory presets and there's 30 blank presets for you to mess with. Now you can edit and delete any of the presets on there. You're not stuck with the factory presets, but if you do like those, you're only going to have about 30 to download from the app or 30 to create yourself. Now you can actually do a factory reset and put the factory patches back in there if you don't like the presets that you've edited or downloaded yourself. Now say you want to get rid of some of the effects on your own. Well, that's pretty easy. See where it says Ben's Folly there on the screen? I can click the 3 dots next to the preset name and it says Clear Preset, and I just click Clear Preset and bye-bye Ben's Folly, you're gone. It's as simple as that. Now it gets a little tedious if you have to do that with 20 or 30 presets, but it's pretty easy. Now another thing that's neat is you can actually upload your presets to the cloud as well. So up on the top right here you might see this little send icon. It's the little box with the arrow in it. Once I click that, I can upload my preset to the cloud and then I have access to it later, which is pretty neat. Somebody else might be able to download it, or maybe you can send it to your friends. That's also pretty cool. Now let's talk about a couple more features on the app here. Now on the top right corner, you'll see the old settings gear that we see on everything nowadays. Well, let's click that and you see the first option there is a tuner. And you click that and it's a shortcut to the tuner on the actual device there. It's kind of cheap that that is a shortcut to just using the screen. There's actually no interface that shows up on the phone, and I do think that that is kind of a mark against this, because it'd be nice if I could just look at the monitor here and it would show you, you know, E, A, G, whatever, but otherwise, you know, it's a small thing. Now alternatively, if you want to get to the tuner settings, you can actually click and hold the tap button for the delay, and after a second or two it'll pull up the tuner option on there. Now there's a couple other options inside the settings menu. You can adjust the USB gain level, which is the level that it's going to send the audio to your DAW at. Something that is really cool about the USB gain though is that it runs independent of the headphone volume. So I can send the optimal signal to the computer to get the best recording, but let's say I have a headache or maybe I actually need it to be louder, I can adjust the headphones to compensate for whatever situation. Now another thing that's kind of tucked in the settings menu is the global EQ, and that's kind of funny because it's a main button on the actual device itself. And what that is a global EQ for the output of the device. And you've got 9 different options in there. You got flat, bright cut 1, bright cut 2, low cut 1, low cut 2, bright boost 1, bright boost 2, and bass boost 1, bass boost 2. In case you're curious, I left mine on flat for every test I did today. And lastly, one of the most popular features of the Mustang Micro, and it's the same as the Mustang Micro Plus, is the ability to Bluetooth music to the device so you can play along with it and add the different effects to your guitar so that they fit, and you can kind of create an entire playlist of what preset would go with what song. And that's kind of fun to do, especially if you just want to have like a 2-hour silent practice session. So that's basically the ins and outs of the Fender Mustang Micro Plus. Now, I think it's a great device. They've really done a ton of R&D on it and just made it really awesome, a huge significant upgrade over the previous model. I like the size of it. I like that it's really lightweight. It's very convenient. It sounds great. The quality of the effects and the amplifiers is top notch. And I also think at $139, it's a steal. Now my absolute favorite feature is you've got stereo output, because on a lot of these multi-effects pedals that I review, they're mono output. So even though it says ping pong delay, it's just boom, 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 but it's the same signal in both ears. So I love that you can just get these really dynamic and ethereal reverbs and really get your headspace into the zone. I love that. Now, some of the things I'm not a fan of is just the nature of the way it plugs into the guitar can sometimes be a little troublesome with seeing the screen or seeing what's going on, or in the case of the Gibson SG, having access to the control. That's something that, unfortunately, I've already dealt with the first Mustang Micro, so I just know what I'm dealing with, but it doesn't make it any less unfortunate. And then there are a few minor user interface things that are a bit of a bummer, but I have no doubt that I think Fender's going to fix those as time goes on. I'll put a link for the Mustang Micro Plus in my description. It's an Amazon affiliate link, so if you click it, there's a chance I'll get a small commission at no cost to you, but I put all that money right back into the channel. Well, if you like this review, consider clicking the like button. And if you like content like this, consider subscribing. Thanks again for checking out the video, and I will talk to you next time. At long last, Fender released a new version of their Fender Micro, their much beloved Fender Micro Mustard, beloved. There's one test that I wish I would have seen before I bought my first Fender Mustang Micro. On the new Mustang Micro